Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Jordan from Modular Head Shop. Today I'm working here at the house. This is my home office up here. And we're going to go through our first bit of build recipes. So, as promised, my first build recipe is going to be from Andrew from Mustang Lifestyles GT500. And I'm simply going to go over all the parts that we used, whatever tools that we use that are readily available, and give you guys reasons why I chose those parts. And that's about it. So without further ado, let's get started. Alright, so you're going to start modularheadshop.com. Over here on the left hand side there will be other build recipes listed. For now there's just Andrew's, so build recipes, Andrew's GT500 build. If anybody wants a really good recipe put together, I have plenty of them. I think the next one will probably do a 3-valve recipe. But anyways, so this is going to be your basic screen for all the categories. So we'll go ahead and we'll start off with the bottom end components. Now these are specific to Andrew's build, so I will give you guys that have 5.4 GT500s or even 5.4 2 and 3 valve engines. If you want to do a bottom end build similar, I'm going to show you how you can do that too. So pretty much the rods and pistons, we're offering them two ways. Rod and piston combo, that'll come with rings. You buy the bearings separate, or a complete rotating assembly with a brand new crankshaft. Now, if you have a spun bearing or you've had a bearing failure, just get a new crank, alright? So, we'll start off with the rod and piston combo. There's a couple different options on here. So, bore, 3.681 bore, that is the factory bore, alright? So if you have a 5/8 block, and you're not sleeving it, or not having it sleeved, this is the bore that you want to select. If you've had it sleeved, I always suggest guys start with 3.650 for the bore. Yes, it's a little bit smaller than stock. It's not going to hurt a thing. If anything, it's going to give you plenty of rebuilds down the road. So, wrist pins, these come with a 180 wall 8620 wrist pin. Now, I always suggest upgrading the wrist pin around the 800 horsepower mark. You're not going to break this pin. You're not going to break this pin at 1,000 wheel. But the problem is that the pins flex. And when the pin flexes, it galls up the pin bore and it beats the rod bushing. I have never seen a set of 0304 Cobra rods that have come out of a car that people have been beating the shit out of where the rod bushings aren't severely out of round. And that is simply because the pin is flexing, in my opinion. I've always upgraded the pins. I'm probably more conservative about that than anybody else, and we rarely have issues. I mean, very rarely. Next option, ceramic dome coating. You don't really need that. It is nice to have, but it's definitely an extra. It should not be a necessity. That's something that you're going to get after you get other items, in my opinion. Lateral gas ports. Lateral gas ports are great. Did not use them on Andrew's build. We were kind of just trying to do something off the shelf, but you can add them to any of these pistons. And so what the lateral gas port will do is, I will actually post an illustration of this, but what the lateral gas port does is it allows you, or it allows combustion gases to enter above the top ring and get behind the ring and expand out with cylinder pressure. So you're actually using high cylinder pressure to help you seat the top ring. Not a bad idea. It works very good for anything over about 15 to 20 pounds of boost. It's not going to wear out your cylinder walls like some of these, old school way of thinking. Anyways, do you want to send in your crankshaft for balancing? There's that option. So you're responsible for the freight to get it here, but once it's here, we'll balance it. We'll balance it just like we would in a regular rotating assembly, and then we'll send it back to you, and we'll cover the freight on the way back. So, I can tell you, I don't think anybody's going to do a better job than me or one of my guys at the shop as far as balancing goes. Make sure everything's good for you. Then down here, you know, I'm a fanatic about specifications. Pretty much, these are all your specifications and approximate weights. So go down here, we talk a little bit more about details that I kind of just went over verbally. But if you do have any questions, you know, just send us an email. I can help you out with compression ratios, bore sizes, whatever you need. All right, same thing here. This is just a rotating assembly version, so it does come with the crankshaft. Now, I typically charge $250 to balance crankshafts, but on this combo, it's $350, and that's simply because I know that we have to put at least one slug of Mallory in each end of the crankshaft, and I would say the going rate's about $75 a slug. I think that's a little high. $50 a slug seems reasonable to me. 25 bucks a piece for the Mallory, 25 bucks extra to put them in. So that is where the extra $100 comes from. The next thing is the ARP main stud and side bolt kit. So before I was doing a lot of the 5/8, we would just use 2 of the iron block main stud kits and 1 of the late model aluminum block side bolt kits. You can still do this. This is pretty much what this kit is. However, you're always going to have 1 extra longer stud, so I just buy them individually now. We package them up into our own kit. It ends up being the same price, but this is the full kit on everything that you're going to need for the main caps and the side bolts. So, pretty simple there. Monar Technologies Power Adder H-beams. I'm sure everybody's heard of them. They're a very good rod for the money. I have them listed as unavailable right now. That should be changing here in the next week. I simply just do not want to have a ton of back orders. So just contact us. We'll get you an ETA on the parts. And I will tell anybody right now, piston manufacturing is behind. Everybody's behind. 4 to 5 weeks if it's not on the shelf. Please do not order pistons and 2 weeks later be calling every day asking. Okay, I do not like to bug the vendors. Their job is to manufacture. We're going to let them manufacture. If you want to buy the pistons by themselves, the exact pistons are listed here. Okay? And now, for you 5.4 guys, and it doesn't matter if you're a 2-valve or 3-valve or 4-valve guy or GT500 guy, these pistons will not be, this line of pistons, the Shelby series, they do not have anything for the 5.4. So simply what we're going to do, and I'm not going to take up much of this because this is for Andrew's build, but if you come here to pistons, we'll just open up a new link real quick, and you go to Diamond, and you click on their 5.4 competition series. It is the same style forging. It's a full round. It's just been relieved right here. And you can add any valve reliefs you want. We have the right compression. We have all the compression tables listed. Same options as other stuff. You can add the gas ports. The only difference is here, they do not come with valve reliefs, so you'll have to add them. So if you get 4-valve valve reliefs, we're going to make sure that they're large enough for a GT500. It's just going to be a 5.4 bore. And that's another thing that I wanted to mention. These pistons are 5.4 specific. 1330 compression height. You see that right there. The pistons that we use for Andrew's build, I believe, are 1315 compression height. So they sit just a little bit lower in the hole. Let's see here. Yes, they are 1315 compression height. So they sit a little bit lower in the hole. Nothing wrong with that. What we don't want is a standard 1220 compression height piston. That sits way too far in the hole. And it's just not good for combustion efficiency. The last 2 items that we have here are the main bearings and the rod bearings from King. Rod bearings doesn't matter. King XP series, their coated series is nice. I like the Cleveite H series as well. But this is the main bearing set that fits the 5.4 and 5.8 aluminum blocks. It has the standard shell for the number 1 main, whereas the standard 5.4 iron block version has a different number 1 main block side bearing. So, all right, moving on. cylinder heads and valve train. This is the good part. Now, the cylinder head package that we got Andrew is our stage 2 package. And it comes with a full port and chambers, but it is designed around the stock valves. It is not, the ports are not humongous, and it does come with springs. It comes with the only spring set that I would ever consider running in these heads. Anything else that uses 2 different spring rates, those are garbage. They're absolute garbage. This is the best setup for the GT500 heads, and I'm not going to change my mind with that. So, description of what it comes with, but pretty much, if you send us in your heads, we're going to glass bead the ports and the chambers and get them super clean for porting. Full CNC port and chambers, stock valves. We're going to regrind the valves, polish the stems, set the correct tips. Pretty much everything that you saw in the video with Andrew. So, and then for you guys that just were interested in just the components, these are the valve springs. I'll go over that real quick. So unlike the traditional 4-valve head, which they all install around the same, these install at 2 different heights. These install like 1.575 on the exhaust and 1.715 on the intake. So that's why there's 2 different specs. However, spring rates, they are the same. That is what we want. We want the same wire diameter. We want the same spring rate. When you have 2 different spring rates, there's nothing but harmonic problems, in my opinion. So this is the best spring kit. This is what I've always used as soon as the spring kit was available, and it works very, very well. Next are the stage 3 camshafts. I think that's what kind of got El Chapo his name. And that's what Andrew's calling the car now. So anyways, they're a little bit big for the street, in my opinion. I try to be a little bit more on the conservative side, but they do make monster power. And when we get this thing on the dyno, it's gonna really show you how much power these cams are capable of handling. However, personally, I would run a stage 2. It's a little bit better on the street, I think. But Andrew has not had any drivability problems, even with the email tune, so I'm pretty surprised there. Supercar followers, it's what other people refer to as rocker arms. These are just basic OEM replacements sold by Ford Racing. The lash adjuster set, same thing. If you want to replace these items, I would replace them around 100,000 miles. The rocker arms seem to last a little bit longer than the lash adjusters do. So, and then to the good AccuFab stuff. So I only ever use AccuFab secondary chains and secondary tensioners on like competition engines. It is expensive. It's worth every dime. You can pretty much guarantee you're not going to have a problem out of these components. So these come with the wear strips already installed. Let's see if we can pull up a good picture for you guys. So it's machined for an O-ring. It'll come with the O-ring here. And it comes with the hardware for this side, which is going to be the passenger side. On the driver's side, I will tell you that the way this is made, whatever bolts you use here are going to be very, very, very close to the secondary sprockets. So you need to make sure that you don't put an additional washer or anything up under there, because they will hit. And the way that the sprocket is spinning, it'll spin one of the bolts out. I've seen it happen a couple of different times. The next item, the AccuFab 4-valve spacers and washers. So the washers are just going to go on your exhaust sprockets, your primaries, just like normal. And then on your intake side, this is all just encapsulated in one. So it just puts much better clamping force on the actual camshaft. We are not looking to rely on a keyway at all to keep the sprocket in place. That should be done by clamping force. So the keyway is simply to line everything up, and that's it. It's a tool. It is not meant to hold it. So obviously ARP 12mm camshaft bolts, and then these are the valve seals. They fit all 4-valve heads. Doesn't matter if it's a BC, Navigator, Aviator, Mach 1, or GT500. These will work. Okay. Alright, I guess we'll do long block components first. So this is going to be anything that's not directly cylinder head related or bottom end related, like head studs. ARP 2000 head studs, I wouldn't use anything less on these blocks. Don't bother getting the 12 points. You know, years ago, a lot of guys were really gung-ho on getting 12-point nuts, and that's because the nut was flanged at the bottom. If you look here, now these hex nuts are flanged at the bottom as well. It used to just be just the hex and a washer underneath, and that would, you get a kind of a false torque reading, but that has since changed. And even the washers now, if you watch the video, they come with a knurling or a dimpling on the bottom, and that's to keep them from spinning. So you do not need to spend the extra money for the 12 points. If you want them to ship fast, I keep the hexes in stock. So these are the head gaskets, the MLX from Cometic. They are specific to the GT500. You can also use just a regular 3700 bore gasket from Cometic. It really does not matter. These give you just a little bit more relief. I would not go 3700 on a 3681 bore is as tight as I would ever have a head gasket. I would never have it where it didn't have at least, you know, 19 or 20 thousandths of cushion. So that's only 10 on each side. Next item, Kinetic Motorsports ARP 2000 cranksaver stud. Excellent, excellent product. Kinetic Motorsports, me and Mitch do a lot of business back and forth. I've been using these on pretty much every build possible, and they work extremely well. It's something that you can do pretty quickly. You can do this in your driveway. So if you don't have it, it's a good idea. You can really tell here where the stud is extremely undercut in this area, and so that takes up this void here, and that's really the biggest issue. This bolt here, you know, it's only threading a little bit down there, and then it's got this thread relief. So this is just a fantastic design in my opinion, and it's, for the price, it's something that everybody should get. New OEM timing chains. If your timing chains, you know, are wore out, or you have like over 100,000 miles, go ahead and change them. And then Shelby Mike Bling. The machine work on these is just fantastic. Shelby Mike builds some awesome stuff. I have assembled these with OEM Ford wear strips. So if you select that you want the wear strips added, I will personally put these together for you. There's two options here. If you want to add the wear strips, okay, and then the pivot pin size. So the pivot pins are 8mm from the factory. It's simply just opened up for a bigger pin for the 9mm. So worst case is you get the 8 and you open them up yourself with a step drill bit or a reamer. But I would just go ahead and get the 9mm pins. Now we'll talk about that too. Alright, so the pivot pins, there's a little bit of confusion with the pivot pins. And I think it has to do with the actual dowel size in comparison to the thread size. So guys always say 8 or 9mm pivot pins, okay? Well, the 8 or 9mm is this part here, okay? 4-valve engines from different years had both 8 and 9mm pins. However, the threaded part is always 6mm for any aluminum block. You know, the iron ones are just pressed in. So, with that being said, the thread pitch is always 8x125, okay? The difference is right here. So one thing I want to mention, and you could see this in the block prep video that Andrew shot of the GT500 build, there is a radius up under here. It is not completely square, and so I use a 45 or 60 degree, it doesn't matter, 45 to 60 degree countersink, and you can countersink it before or after you've tap the threads, but you do need a countersink because it's not completely flat at the bottom. So the radius, it's going to be radiused. It wants just a little bit of a chamfer, so just keep that in mind. All right. Now go back. Okay, so the Melling M360. The Melling M360 is kind of my go-to oil pump now. That is because the Ford Racing 3-valve pump with the billet backplate has been discontinued. And so this one comes with a cast iron backplate. It's not going to flex as much as aluminum. Anytime the backplate is flexing, you are simply pouring oil back into the pan before it goes and gets pressurized. So they do advertise this pump as having a 20% increase in flow. I haven't tested that myself, so I'm not stating that. I'm just simply stating what they say. But I use this housing to put my S7 tool steel gear in. That was another product that we featured in the build series. Alright, so this is our Modular Head Shop S7 tool steel gears. I have these made for us. They're running in a lot of engines that I've built. A lot of customers I do the cylinder heads for. These are just basic pictures that I took at the shop pretty quickly. The pictures do not do these oil pump gears justice. They are fine pieces of machine work. And then the last item is going to be the Boundary GT500 crankshaft sprocket. So the GT500 crank sprocket is small, just like the Coyotes, and they're prone to breaking a lot more than the traditional 4.6 and 5.4 10mm style sprocket. So it does have this, what they call a burst ring right here, separating the two chain teeth, and seems to work well. I mean, we sell a lot of these. I use them on pretty much every build. Have never had an issue with any of them. Alright, so moving on. We'll go to gaskets. I think I listed the head gaskets in this category as well. I did. I feel like they are more of a long block component, but they should be listed in both the long block and the gasket category. That's why they're there. Just to elaborate on head gaskets a little bit, I think that these head gaskets are the best for the stock 5.8 liter bore. If you are going to run, or if you are running a 5.4, then you should use the 92mm bore gaskets. Alright, 3.620 is plenty of cushion. You could also use the 94mm bore gaskets, which are 3.700 bore. That gives you 19 thousandths of difference between the bore size and the gasket bore. That is the absolute tightest I would ever go. Typically, you want at least 20. So, the next portion here is going to be valve cover gaskets. Now I try to keep all the gaskets OEM Ford when at all possible. OEM Ford pretty much secures the fact that they are made in at least North America. I've seen a lot of Felpro stuff coming out of China recently, and that just pisses me off. I hate Chinese crap. So, anyways, the Felpro kit is listed because Ford wants a fortune for their spark plug tube grommets and their grommets for the valve cover bolts. I think between the two of them, the cost was like $90 in addition to just the outer pieces. So, for that reason, we are going Felpro here. Then we have the OEM Ford, 11 to 14 windage tray. Now, similar to a Coyote, they look about the same. These windage trays can be used on any 4.6 or 5.4. You may have to trim a little bit where the pickup tube goes. There are some minor fitment issues from, combination to combination. We may test some of that out later, but it's nothing that you can't fix with some basic hand tools. Just some little trimming is needed in some applications. Water pump O-ring, pretty much fix all 4.6, 5.4, 5.8 stuff. Same thing with the rear main seal here. These are the OEM intake manifold gaskets. I don't know that there is a aftermarket version. I wouldn't buy an aftermarket version at this price anyways. And then the timing cover gasket kit. Now these are all OEM Ford parts. I simply just put them together to assure that you get all the right parts that you need and nothing that you do not. All right, and now for my favorite part, the tools. So, I use a lot of different tools in the shop. One thing I don't have a lot of is really nice, like, regular hand tools. So the Snap-on guys, they're always talking trash. Oh, you ain't got nothing for tools. It's because I invest all my money in measuring tools. So, you know, I'm fine with a Craftsman wrench, even though I do have some nice Snap-on stuff now. It's the measuring tools and the assembly tools that are really going to set you apart if you want to get down to the nitty-gritty and blueprint stuff and assemble engines the correct way, in my opinion. So, we'll go over this here in a little bit. There's a lot of verbiage that I have here, just kind of explaining everything. And then some of the other tools that we do use in assembly that, you know, would be beneficial to you at home or if you have a shop. So this is a plastic freeze plug driver. This is not the exact one I use. We actually have our own. It's made out of Delrin. But one thing I do note in here, and I want to make a note of now, you want the freeze plug, the lip of the freeze plug, to sit right here. I know, I'm sorry, it's a crappy picture. But you want it to sit right there. If this portion is touching the bottom of the freeze plug, so the cup of it, right, it will collapse the walls. You do not want to collapse the wall because then you're losing press fit. So, measure your stuff. Just use a pair of calipers right here. And then, you know, or you could face it on a lathe if you have a lathe handy. But just make sure that there's a little bit of a gap. I say 20 because it is a hard plastic. It's still going to give here at the step a little bit. So give it 20 thousandths of clearance and you're not going to have a problem. Do not ever use a socket and put the socket inside the freeze plug. Immediately collapses the wall, you're going to have a leak. Probably one of the most important tools you can have besides a dial bore gauge is the rod bolt stretch gauge. You can see me use it in the final assembly video. This is the exact same one I have. I've probably built 500 engines and it's never given me a problem. This is our GT500 professional cam degree kit. Pretty much comes with everything seen in the videos. One thing that's different is it does come with a GT500 specific glass adjuster for the intake side. And it's going to come with the magnetic base plates, or the plates to mount your magnetic dial indicator, and my fancy checker springs and stuff like that. Piston ring pliers. I use some that are so old I couldn't even tell you where I got them. They are the exact same design here. It's a lot different than the standard ones that you'll see other people, because the ones I see other guys use, they don't support the ring all the way around. And this one does support the ring all the way around. It's very affordable. Ours doesn't even have the coated handles on it anymore, but I might actually have to buy myself a new one. And then feeler gauges. There's a bunch of different feeler gauges. Most of them are just made in China, unfortunately. Nothing you can do about that. I've had the same feeler gauge set to where you can barely even read it. They work good. So this is the set I like if I was going to buy a new set. This is the exact connecting rod vise that I use. However, the price is not correct on here, so I'm going to have to fix that price. But this is the same connecting rod vise I use. I have used forever. I think the only thing I ever had a problem was this pin sheared at one point. We just threw a hardened pin in there and I just tacked it. So other than that, it's aluminum construction. It's not going to gall the thrust surfaces of your connecting rods. And that is the correct way to tighten the fasteners in your connecting rod if you're installing bearing shells to blueprint. Lastly is the Proform piston ring squaring tool. This is the exact tool I use. Over 500 engines. Never had a problem with it. It says that it's for a much larger bore, but I will tell you that 3.5 is fine. This part here can just kind of tuck underneath, and that's it for that. So, the other tools, measuring tools. Well, I can't, any product that I sell, I obviously have to make some type of profit on it. That's, the whole point of being in business. So, if I'm not going to make a profit on something, I'm not going to invest the money to keep it on the shelf. But there are a lot of good tools, and I have experimented with what works good and what does not work good. So, we'll go over these real quick, and I'm not going to read this whole thing. I'll let you guys click on here and read it. But anyways, during block prep, I used a couple of different things. I'm just going to open them all real quick. All right. This is the small little die grinder that we use for chamfering all the edges and machine surfaces. It's the same one that Harley uses after surfacing cylinder heads. So it's a good piece. We might get another one. I mean, they're fairly inexpensive. They work really well. The next thing is the insert that I use. This little ball mill insert from Dremel. It's very good. I mean, you're going to spend that on a tungsten or a carbide end mill in that size anyway, so it's a fair price. Next is our little 90-degree die grinder. Ingersoll Rand, definitely made in China at that price, unfortunately. But you know what? This is what I have in the shop. They work good. You can buy them right here. I would only buy 3M conditioning pads though. So these are the 3-inch pads. If you want to get the 3-inch pads, this is the pad adapter. Okay. And then I do have a link down here for the pads as well. So it adds up, but if you have a few blocks to do, you're going to use a couple of these per block easily. So, all right. Now measuring tools. This is not the original measuring tool that I use, or none of these are the exact measuring tools that I use. However, the dial bore gauge I use is extremely expensive, over $1,000. And I'm a huge Modular fan, and they have stuff that is not that expensive, that's very, very good. So one thing we want to look at is resolution. My dial bore gauge only has half a thou resolution, but it has enough spacing between it to where I can gauge where it's at. This one is amazing though. For the price, it's wonderful. So, to show you guys real quick, it reads from 2 to 6 inches, so it's perfect for rods, rod bearings, measuring rod bearing clearance, measuring your main bearing clearance, measuring your piston to wall clearance. This tool can be used for all of that. 1/10,000th resolution. From here to here is only 1/1000th. That would be half a thou, and every hash mark here is a tenth of a 1,000th. Okay? 1/10,000th. So, $330, hell of a deal. If I need to get more for the machine shop at any time, this is what I'm buying. This is a great deal. And it's made in Japan, I believe. Some Modular stuff is made in Brazil now, but their not authentic, but their higher end parts are made in Japan. Yeah, it says made in Japan right there. So, cool. Modular, awesome stuff. For micrometers, I love Starrett stuff. That's all what I've always used. I like them with the ratcheting thimble. All right. So this is a lock here. This is the ratchet, and it's all adjustable. So this here is going to be your 1/10,000th reading and your thousandths reading. So I'm going to make a separate video on how to read these, but they are super accurate, and they come in a nice little case, and they'll come with the adjustment wrench. And we'll go over micrometers a little bit more in depth in another video. But the correct way, if you want to do this at home, the correct way is to use a dial bore gauge, okay? Yeah, micrometer. That's just, plastic gauge is BS. Don't use plastic gauge. You invest a few $100s, and then you and your friends can all use the same tools. and build badass stuff. So I hope you guys like this build recipe. I know I went in depth a little bit with the tools. It's kind of a one-time deal with the tool stuff. Let me know what you guys want to see. I'm down for whatever. There's just so much information I'd like to get out there, and the more information I can get out, on a big screen, there's a lot less times I'm going to have to repeat myself on the phone. So I really hope this helps some of y'all. Again, any build recipes you want me to go over, holler at me. We'll make it happen. Have a great day. Thanks for watching.